Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jay. How are you doing on this fine day?
Well, the New York Yankees had a very, very good game last night against the Toronto Blue Jays. Sorry, my Canadian friends. So I'm living pretty large at the moment, feeling good about it, and feeling good about it's Friday. It's the weekend. Got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about this morning. But I'll tell you the one thing that's got me the happiest, Pierre, my cup of coffee.
Oh yeah.
Got my
I'm
cup of
I'm I'm
coffee.
here with you there, buddy.
I live here in Brooklyn, New York, and I went this morning, and because I know I have to do this show early, went and got a bagel. Extremely good. Feeling like this is going to be a good day. If you get it started with a bagel from here in Brooklyn, it's very, very hard to go wrong.
Well, we can have that discussion like the Jays versus the Yankees or Montreal Bagels versus New York Bagels. Those some fighting words, babe.
Yeah, well, we've got some competition either way on both sides. I know that Montreal bagels are a thing. I
Yeah,
am
they're a thing.
fairly aware. There were lots and lots of Jewish immigrants that went out to that part of Canada and made it their own. However, I do love what we do here. And I know that we've got like a little bit of a chewier bagel here. Is at least that's the way I understand it as compared to there.
It's a little bit more, I wouldn't say moist, but a little bit more dense and chewy in the middle. But no, they're both good. Let's put it. Let's leave it at that and be good neighbors.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Canada, for all that you bring us. Love your maple syrup and your hockey and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
Good,
hockey
good on
season.
y'all. Also, thank you for I believe it's James Nesmith, who invented basketball. He was Canadian, wasn't he?
That's correct. And I did work for at the James Naismith building for many years, the Canadian Sports Association building. Um, yeah,
So
Canadian invented basketball with peach baskets. However, we can't really play it that well.
well, Toronto had a really good season a few years ago. It was very well captured by Drake on the court, so I'm very aware of that. But anyway, we've got a few things to talk about this morning, Pierre.
We do. First, I wanted to ask your opinion. I saw that you mentioned something this week about our voice or celebrating Hispanic and Latin voices at Microsoft. What is that about?
Yeah, so to kind of continue Microsoft's real strive to have an inclusive environment and to promote, different voices, there was a great feature because this is a Hispanic History Month from September 15th to October 15th, and we wanted to, as Microsoft, make sure that we're putting out voices to the rest of the world that are part of what makes up Microsoft. And so I really like this website that they put together. These are different conversations across Microsoft from different people who are of Hispanic or Latinx persuasion that wanted to really share what their experience has been like. And so I really recommend, if this is something you'd like to check out, that you do. We want to make sure that our world and technology is making every voice heard. And so I thought this was a really great way to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at any point, it is all of our responsibilities to make sure that those that may not have as much as a voice to help them out and to give them a stage for them to actually say and contribute to the full extent to which they're capable and I think it's our responsibility.
Absolutely. And before we get into the stories for today, I want to say hi to Paul and Sina, Mitch, Jared. Thank you so much for being in the chat. We appreciate your viewing and also being part of a community that talks to one another.
That's right. That's right. So, considering our time here, why don't we get going with the news? So, what's your first item about Azure Automation Hybrid Worker?
Sure.
Oh,
Azure
actually, that's
Automation.
mine.
Oh, go for it then. I'll
Sorry,
back you up if you need it.
sorry. I'm just looking at my notes here at this end. I think I should have put on my glasses this morning.
But yeah, Azure Automation Hybrid Worker extension for Azure and Arc-enabled servers now in public preview. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, Pierre?
Yeah. So Azure Automating the hybrid worker is basically a way for you to design runbooks in Azure Automation and execute them across all of your. And I'll use the word data center to encompass both your on-prem, your hybrid, and your cloud environment, where you could actually send those commands and those runbooks to be executed across different areas. Well, up to now, what you needed to do was to deploy the log analytics agent and tie it to a log analytics workspace. And there was a whole bunch of different dependencies that you needed to do in order to deploy this to servers that weren't on Azure. So they weren't being managed by the Azure agent or the Azure extension model. Now,
so you get that Azure AD authentication, things like that, by using this method.
That's right. So now with with Azure Arc-enabled servers is now moving to, instead of the agent, to an extension based. So the Azure agent that's part of Azure Arc will now deploy the Azure Automation, the hybrid worker extensions directly to those VMs on Arc-enabled servers. I hate the word to say the word natively because it's a hybrid situation, but they will deploy that to those machines just like if they were Azure VMs. So taking away all of the dependencies on log analytics agents, on workspace connection, it makes it a lot more streamlined, a lot more efficient. And then you get the benefit of, as you just mentioned, AD connected identities. So those VMs now have an AD identity that you can actually assign roles and rights to.
Sure.
So really cool.
And yeah, so they actually say that the two key benefits here is it enables organizations to meet their strident audit and compliance requirements by not using local authentication methods. Yes, because we are in a zero trust world here at Microsoft. And
that's right.
And it allows seamless integration of Azure Automation with Azure Active Directory for organizations requiring centralized control and management of the identities and credentials. So Pierre will have more about this particular new feature in the show notes. And I think you're going to love it for those of you who are hybrid cloud junkies.
That's right. And hybrid, I love this quote. Jason Zander, which is our illustrious corporate vice president for Azure at Microsoft, at the last in-person event, that big or first-party event, which was Ignite 2019, at the end of 2019, he actually said in his keynote that hybrid is now our customers' end state.
Yep. Hybrid, multi-cloud, you name it, being able to manage multiple cloud deployment platforms and have a view in a single pane of glass with something like Azure Arc in the Azure portal. Very, very big for people who have to manage large amounts of complex systems.
Yeah.
So you ready to move on to the next one?
I am. What you got in store for us?
So you PowerShell users, update your scripts to use AZ PowerShell modules by the 29th of February, 2024. But yeah, there is AZ module support in Azure Automation now. You're going to be replacing the PowerShell modules, or I should say, the old methodology, the Azure RM PowerShell module is being retired, and it will be replaced with a PowerShell module known as AZ, which provides all the capabilities of Azure RM with more improvements. I think that there's some key benefits like Update takes care of handling all the dependencies behind the scenes and taking away some of those hassles of manually importing and updating modules. The control will be in your hands of which version of AZ to update the modules. And changes in the portal, new automation accounts will have the latest AZ modules by default, starting with 6.4.0. New versions will be released by Azure Automation team following the PowerShell version releases, so there'll be no impact on existing automation accounts. And so if you want to automate, you'll use the features in Update AZ module. If there are no AZ modules present in that account, the new AZ modules will be added. And if there are existing modules, example like AZ accounts, all other modules will be updated to select the AZ version that matches. So accounts will maintain some backwards compatibility. So, there's tons and tons of things going on with PowerShell constantly. It's a language that people absolutely love. I've always been a Bash person myself.
Yep.
I came up as a Linux admin and spend most of my time with Bash. And so you can use the AZ module, you can use Azure CLI, you can use all these things, use an SDK, use the portal, just create your Azure resources. That's what we want you to do. And we just want to provide you with simpler methods that'll help you do so.
Yeah. I'm actually very excited about that because I've done a few projects where we used Azure Automation and also Azure Functions, which we'll talk about in a little bit, using PowerShell code, because that's mostly what I've written in terms of scripting in my career is, started with VB, which is now defunct, but PowerShell very, very powerful. But when you're doing it in Azure Automation, you had to basically manually go in and add all of the modules to your automation account so that you'd be able to use them. And it was a bit of an annoyance. I'm happy to see too that they're going to retire the Azure RM module, mostly because the Azure RM module, the naming convention's not exactly the same. With the new module, it's going to be AZ dot something, like it's going to be very, and it does have the verb dash command functions to it. I think it's going to be plus. It's over 2 years because I've known a lot of people that have said, "Oh my God, you're going to retire this." I've got a whole lot of scripts that are using it. Like when you have your bash scripts and somebody changes the commands on you. And then all of a sudden you have to go and revisit all your scripts. But we have 2 years. I think that's enough. You think?
Yeah, so? I hope you have the time, and if you can, maybe just put it into your calendar. Update module by 2024, and I think you may be able to accomplish your goals. I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah, I think so.
So we've got some security stuff next, right?
We do. So I started looking into TLS 1.2 and TLS 1.3 when I started looking at Windows 2022, Windows Server 2022. But this week, they've actually announced that TLS 1.2 is going to become the standard for Azure Site Recovery. And I think I've got the wrong page here. Let me see if
it's going to be at least the minimal version that you need to you're required to use in your Azure backup or site recovery, rather, if I'm correct.
That's correct. So right now, the site recovery uses an agent that gets this. It's called the Mars agent or the Microsoft Azure Recovery Service agent. That basically collects all the info from your hard drive and replicates the reads from your hard drive to a virtual drive that's in Azure. Well, starting in November 2021, it will actually not allow that agent to use TLS 1.0 and TLS 1.1, which can be still valid on our customer's server. The agent itself will use TLS 1.2 and above only. So it makes it more secure.
And I think that there are a bunch of docs on how to do it, say with the S-channel protocols for the Windows registry. So there's some registry key changes. You could do it via the .NET framework. There's definitely some registry changes there as well. The impact, if you do not make that change, is that you won't be able to use this service. A replication will likely fail at your source. You'll have connection failures, and services related to the site recovery won't start or stop as usual. So you definitely want to make sure that you have this part of your continuing improvement to your security on your servers.
Yeah, and I think it really is broader than just your recovery service that's moving to 1.2. I think 1.0 and 1.1 are so old, and there's there are vulnerabilities that have been identified and patched in those protocols, but those protocols are very old. And considering that 1.3 is the current, we should really stop using 1.0 and 1.1.
Yeah, because 120, because 1.2 has like a much better 256 hash encryption methodology. It's improved over those first versions, and 1.0 truly is a 1.0. You know, we're going way back, and so there's improvements that we always want to make to our solutions, and security is paramount. I always say that it is one of the most important parts, and so utilizing secure transport protocols always is big thing to work on.
Yeah, Jared Shockley in the chat room is saying that we should just send everything up in the clear. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's take Key Vault, let's toss it in the trash bin.
Security, who needs that, right?
Yeah. Or we could just go back to SSL, maybe. I don't know.
I think that would be a step backwards. But anyway, people still refer to SSL, but I think at this point it's more like it's like a Kleenex, or they mean TLS, but they say SSL.
Let me tell you, I spent a number of years, and I say a number of years, where working with SSL certificates was just like the bane of my existence. It's rotating, it's making sure your CSR and all that stuff matches. It was, I get a little bit of a pain in my chest when I think about those days. I'm glad they are long gone. I'm glad that we also have ways to implement these services a lot easier, automation, things like that, and not having to do so many manual steps in the process.
Well, I agree, but this week, one of our teammates, the April Edwards, sent me a couple of URLs. Two very well-known or very well-used websites had their SSL certificate expire on them. One of them was expired by like 6 days, and nobody had noticed.
And I think the Let's Encrypt root certificate is expiring, which, for people who are using that, it's a really good free service. But the I didn't trust DST root CA X3, and I know that's a long, expired. And so that kind of invalidates that certificate.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about our next subject, if you don't mind, Pierre.
Yeah, no worries.
I think so. We're proud to announce that Azure Functions Runtime 4.0 is now in public preview. It supports languages like .NET 6.0, Node.js 14, Python 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, Java 8 and 11, PowerShell 7, and custom handlers. So it's expected to go GA next month. and it'll be coinciding with that .NET upgrade or update as well for 6. So you'll be able to take advantage of some advanced features like durable functions, and it's just a lot of great integration into things like VS Code, where there are code snippets and things like that, and then direct deployment that you could integrate into your VS Code experience, or even just straight up Visual Studio. Migrating your apps allows you to spend some time using the Azure Functions core tools 4.0. There's a preview of that as well, so you can use this tool locally, start working to make your upgrades, and then eventually you can deploy it into the cloud. So it's going to always continue to evolve. You'll want to keep your eye open on the different ways that .NET 6 changes, if that's what you're interested in, and also find different ways that your runtime functions, or I should say your Azure Functions runtime impacts the service that you run. And I think Azure Functions are really great. I like to think about them in the context of the cron and killing the cron server. That's kind of the way I look at it, is that, a lot of people, if you remember, we had to keep up like one server or one VM or something, and its only job was to execute crons. You didn't always know if they worked. You'd have to go check logs. You'd have to check.
I've always hated the cron time notation format.
Yeah.
I always hated that part.
So that's the thing that I think is really great, is you can replace that. You can also integrate Azure Functions with services like, say, Azure Static Web Apps, so that if you want to add some sort of dynamic features into your website, but still work with just like a static site generator like Hugo or something like that, you can implement the API and do things like, if maybe you want people to send you a form and you want to store that form in something is like Cosmos DB, or maybe you want it to just email you one of the.
Yeah, or even a OneDrive.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that discussion with many IT professionals. Functions is not just a developer tool. Mm-hmm. It is a tremendous IT and operations tool, mostly because, as you mentioned, the scheduling and the triggering portion of those functions. Plus, now with this announcement, PowerShell 7, so we're kind of going towards a unified PowerShell code base. So PowerShell 7 across automation, across functions, on Windows and on Linux. It makes it a lot easier. I personally use it for a bunch of different automation tool tasks that I need to do that are not running into an automation account because it doesn't need to. So you now have the opportunity to do both. It ties in very well with Logic apps. Mm-hmm. It's just a tremendous tool for operations. So
yeah, and you get things like the automatic scaling. And I think that's really huge, is that once you actually have an Azure function that's getting hit a lot, Azure will, on the back end of it, know that, all right, well, we're having a certain level of requests increase, so let's add more resources for this function. And the other thing I like is that there's so many different types of triggers to have events happen, like time, or like if a new entry in Cosmos DB comes into, or even like a blob storage entry, like a new block in there, it'll go ahead and say, okay, there's been a change, time to kind of execute this. And you could integrate NPM or NuGet into it, so that you're using languages and the different dependencies that you already know. Yeah. And so I think you can really make use of that to make your life easier, and focus on code and not necessarily the ops portion of building out applications.
Well, code to support ops in this particular scenario.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we are 5 minutes before we have to get off, I wanted to talk about shows that were upcoming, and you've got two of them.
Yeah. Yep. So if you want to just bring up the Azure Fun Bites Twitter, that'd be cool for me. Every week, what do we do on Azure Fun Bites? We get together, we talk about the people, process, and things like that that make up an amazing experience on Azure. You can see right there, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. Every Thursday. This week, I had some really great people from White Source. Hey, there I am. From White Source, there they are. Reese Arkins and Lena Kleiner. They came and they helped me understand a little bit more about open source security and implementing open source security processes that will ensure that when you're deploying into something, or I should say, you're putting something into GitHub, you're not creating a scenario for other people that, there's an NPM module that has a Bitcoin miner in it or something like that. Let's avoid that. And so if you want to join me, I really would appreciate, come over on Learn TV on Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll get together. We'll take questions. We'll give them right to our guests because there's a guest every week. And I've got next week, Burke Holland. And Burke Holland's going to help me talk about dev containers and how they work alongside VS Code to help you, be able to do your builds remotely rather than having to do them on your local computer.
Yep, that's perfect.
The next event that I want to talk to you all about is an event that we have on October 21st called Create DevOps. I'll be hosting alongside Stephen Morawski. We've got some really, really great people who are going to be speaking. We've got Martin Woodward from GitHub. He's going to be doing our keynote. April Edwards, like you mentioned before, the great. She's going to be talking about automation. Donovan Brown, the man in the black shirt, the king of DevOps here at Microsoft himself. He is going to be talking about cloud native. Kat Cosgrove from Pulumi, wonderful, wonderful mind. She's going to be talking about security. And then we want to bring it all down to culture. And so Quintessa Sanks is going to be joining us. She's going to be talking about DevOps culture, shift, and how all that kind of comes together. So join us October 21 on Learn TV. If you go to aka.ms/create DevOps, you can register and get your reminder and all that.
That's fantastic. I've got the Create DevOps on my schedule. And Fun Bites is always on my schedule, and I am subscribed to your Twitch channel, so I get notified every time you go on, regardless.
Well, I thank you, sir.
So the last thing before we have to go today, since we talked about Azure Functions and we talked about how they're good for developing and applications, but also for IT and ops, I thought we would make the Azure module, or you suggested that we should make the Azure module, Learn module of the week, the create server logic with Azure Functions. So this will take you through deciding whether or not serverless computing is for you. It'll help you how to create that function through the portal, and it will run you through the gamut of the different triggers. And you mentioned that you liked the different triggers that was available, and show you how you can monitor that function firing in the portal. I think it's a really good. Have you gone through this one?
I'm going to be going through that one. I think I'm going to start doing it tomorrow or sometime over the weekend. I looked through it and I said, you know what? I got to up my function skills. So I've done some of the other things related to functions, but this is one I got to try out.
Yeah, I'm still using functions on my day-to-day because I wrote a blog post about that months ago about how I use it for my DNS, so faking the dynamic DNS. But with that, I think we are out of time. So Jay, thank you very much for spending the morning with me. And folks in the chat, we've got Paul, we got Jared, we got Mitch, we got Sina, and I think Sina is a new person participating in the chat. So welcome.
Out of Australia.
Austria, not Australia.
Austria. Oh wait, sorry, Austria. Sorry, I look. No. Sina says good morning from Australia. There we
From
go.
Australia. Okay. Yeah, you're right. You are correct. Again, I should be wearing my glasses. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. If you are looking for more info, aka.ms/AZ updates will take you to our blog where all of our listings and all of the links about the stuff we talked about today is there for you to use. So thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend. See you later, Jeff.
Have a great weekend, everyone.